Fios is not cable. We're wired differently, which means you can get the fastest internet available with equal upload and download speeds from 50 to 500 megs. So you can upload 200 photos before your favorite song is finished. Click the ad and switch to Fios today to get our best offer ever.
This is the Cover32 Seahawks Show.
Throw down the middle, Doug Baldwin at the 30, 25-20, 15-10-5. Touchdown, Seahawks!
With your host, Kevin Daggett.
Cam Chancellor with the big hit. Who else would it be but Cam?
And Lee Vowell.
Intercepted! Getting underneath it is Earl Thomas!
Just one step away from CenturyLink Field.
He scrambles upfield, he's hit, he's dropped. Michael Bennett is there to make the sack.
The official podcast of the Cover32 Seahawks website.
Thomas rolls, drags Xavier Rhodes across the goal line, and the Seahawks are on the board.
Go Hawks!
Well, what do we have here? This is not Bruce Leroy Vowell. This is Ted Hicks joining you guys again as a special guest host. Excited to be here, and I get to rock with my tag team partner, at least for the next 30 minutes, Mr. Kevin Daggett. We want to welcome you to the Cover32 Seahawks Show. Of course, the hosts are Kevin and Lee. You can hear the show on the Happy Hour Network live and also the podcast on Cover32.com, of course, iHeartRadio, and iTunes. And today we have one special guest. I'm going to butcher his name, Connor Benintendi. Yeah, I think I butchered it. All right, Connor, I'm sorry about that. I'm remedial today. But Connor writes for the Cover32, and we're going to be excited to have him. So, Kev, what's going on, brother? How you doing?
I'm doing good, man. Cannot complain at all. Got to just sit back and enjoy football this weekend and not worry about my team playing and stress out about that. It was kind of interesting, kind of fun.
Aren't those like the best weeks when you're not stressed out or anything like that, and you can just enjoy as a fan?
Especially when I got the DirecTV NFL Sunday ticket, so I can watch any game I want. And it's I tell you what, once they DirecTV, they screw you because when you sign up for that deal, they give it to you free for a year. And if you're a football fan, you're screwed because you can't not get it after that.
Right. I remember previous years, Kev, where I was a DirecTV customer for about 14 years, and I tell you, you can't put down that Sunday ticket. But when you see that overall price, you see $350, you're just like, oh, my goodness, I don't think I need this in my life.
Yeah, then they say, well, we'll spread it out over 6 months for you. I'm like, oh, okay. And then my wife says, we have to get that. I'm like, all right, you said we got to get it. All right. Right.
And those are some of the struggles as a football fan because, you know, you're loving what you do. You're loving watching the NFL, being a fan. I mean, for the most part, I'm not sure about you, but, like, I try to go to at least one or possible two, if I'm lucky, games per year. But I got to tell you, this stuff is costly.
Mm-hmm. It is. Definitely.
It really is. So I think we have a special guest who's going to be joining us momentarily. But I want to tell you, the fact that the Seahawks had a bye totally screwed up my fantasy roster because, of course, I try to load it up with Seahawks during my initial draft, and like weeks like last week, I was like kind of sitting there scrambling like, you know, everyone else in their fantasy leagues. How did you do last week in your fantasy football league?
I don't do that fantasy football league, but my team did good. They were tied for first place, and then they didn't play, and the Seahawks ended up in first place. Pretty good deal.
That is a pretty good deal. That is a pretty good deal. I mean, I don't know. It's for me, on being an outsider, looking at, and I know nowadays we're hearing a lot about outsiders and locker room talk and all this other stuff, but being an outsider, that's the Seahawks division to lose, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, I think so. At the beginning of the season, I was thinking, well, the Cardinals should be tough, so it's going to be once again the Cardinals and the Seahawks battling it out for the division, and the 49ers and the Rams are going to be, what they have been the past few years. But it's fortunately the Seahawks have played well, and the Cardinals have not played very well. 49ers. Did I say that? 49ers. Freudian slip there. They've performed as I think everybody thought they would, but the Rams are a little surprising. So we'll see. I'm sure Jeff Fisher will still end up 7-9 like he usually does, but we'll see how it goes.
I tell you, Kev, on my show, Late Night Parents, I got to get you on here sometime in the near future, because I want to ask you a football-related question on how does Jeff Fisher still remain employed in the National Football League? I don't get it. I don't see it. I'm missing it.
I don't know how he stays employed, or Jim Caldwell, to be honest with you. I don't.
Oh my goodness.
And I'll tell you what, I think the 49ers, what Michigan's doing this year, I hope the 49ers realize, and I'm not a big Jim Harbaugh fan, but I hope they realize that he was not the problem with the 49ers, because that guy can win football games. He's a good coach. So, but yeah, I don't know how Jeff Fisher keeps his. We had a guy on the guy that writes for the I think the Cover32 Rams site, and I said, "Do you think Jeff Fisher's in danger of his job?" And he said, "No way. He's not. He'll be good for another 2 or 3 years." I'm like, "What? How?" But I guess those owners like him, and I mean, he wasn't that good with the Titans. They never really did much, and I don't get it.
I think 6 playoff appearances in overall 20 seasons. Come on. Just imagine if you had to manage your budget, and in a 20-year cycle you managed it 6 times. We'd be on unemployment line.
Yeah, exactly.
I do have a question. I do have a question for you. There was some news that came out today. I believe I saw it through Bleacher Report, or the Bleacher Report app. Yeah, that's a shameless plug. We don't write for Bleacher Report, but I do have the app installed. That Colin Kaepernick is starting this week. What in the world is going on here? I thought Chip was in love with Blaine Gabbert.
Yeah, I really, this whole Kaepernick thing, I don't know, the whole his protest and whatnot's one thing, but I do believe Colin Kaepernick is a good athlete, and I don't, and even Richard Sherman said he's faster than he looks, and once he gets going, he's hard to catch. But I guess they were saying, what have they been saying, that he's been hurt? That's why he hasn't been playing. He had those surgeries and whatnot.
They were saying before he wasn't healthy, and today he's named the starter, or he's going to be starting this week, and it's totally a football decision. I don't know about that one, Kevin.
I don't either, but I think I don't know if they got much to lose by starting him. Again, he's a hell of an athlete, and I think part of his, it's just I don't know much about it, but I think a lot of his issues are psychological. I don't know that he's had the best coaching or the best, they do those sports psychologists, but I think a lot of that stuff's in his head. I think that playoff game game against the Seahawks where Sherman deflected that pass, I think that had more of an effect on him than anybody wants to realize. I mean, because he went pretty much downhill after that. So, But I'm glad he's getting another shot. You know, he deserves it. He seems like a pretty good kid.
I think it's partially, and like I said, I'm the outsider. I'm the Jets homer, the 1-4 Jets homer. But I think it's you have temperamental owners. They're listening to the fans, and you know what happens when owners or GMs or anyone running a front office listens to a fan, because they're screaming for Kaepernick to come into the game, and I'm like, yeah, okay, let's see how long that lasts, because what crowd or what fan base doesn't yell for a backup, a pretty popular backup, and of course with him taking his stance, it remains to be seen. I'm really, really interested. I think I'm going to have to dial into that game on Sunday.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see. You know, another thing too is you talk about GMs and owners listening to fans. What about this this deal with the Cowboys? I mean, how are they, when Tony Romo comes back, how are they going to put Tony Romo in?
It's called $68 million guaranteed for Tony Romo. That's all it's called. Let's not get crazy. It's $68 million that's guaranteed, and he's not going to sit on the sideline with a clipboard and a pair of Sonos or Bose headphones. There's no way. And Dak is tearing it up.
That's what
he's doing
saying.
a pretty darn good job.
Yeah, I think it may be and Drew Bledsoe was my guy, but a Drew Bledsoe Tom Brady situation.
That remains to be seen, I'm telling you. But I think we have in the queue our featured guest of the night, Connor Benintendi. Hang on one second. Let me get him into the queue for us. And Connor writes for the Cover32 Seahawks site. Connor, thanks for being on with us. How you doing, brother?
Hey, I'm pretty good today, man. How you doing?
Pretty good.
Hey, Connor, before we get talking about the Seahawks, I think, you know, as it happens every year, there's always some surprises and, you know, things happen in the league that we didn't expect. What are some of the biggest surprises this year in the NFL, in your opinion?
Oh, boy. I don't even know. I mean, honestly, speaking of, just to go to the Seahawks, man, Atlanta Falcons, they have really surprised me, and not just because of their record, but, I mean, Matt Ryan, for one thing. Everybody thought he was starting to wash out, and then now all of a sudden we've got Matt Ryan being one of the top passers in the league. And, I mean, that's kind of just been the biggest, most crazy thing to me. And then also to see the Bills fall to 0-2 when I thought they were going to be really good, and now they're all of a sudden coming back. I mean, that's a pretty good storyline. And then, I mean, just one more is the Cardinals, man. Where are the Cardinals at this year, you know? I mean, everybody thought they were going to be on top of the NFC West along with the Seahawks, just like they have been in the past couple of years, but I don't know.
Yeah, I kind of agree. That's interesting. You mentioned Matt Ryan come back. I've always liked Matt Ryan, and then if you think about it, in that division alone, you've got Cam Newton, Jameis Winston, and Matt Ryan, all pretty darn good quarterbacks, all competing in the same division for one spot there. But getting back to the Seahawks, what are some of your thoughts on how the season's come out so far for the Hawks?
Well, I mean, I think things have gone pretty well thus far. I think that there's been some surprises, especially with Thomas Rawls getting injured again and heading out when everybody thought that he was kind of going to be that top guy and really have his career year this year, when it's looking like that's not going to be the case. And Christy Michael obviously has stepped in and been a great fill for them, and that's been awesome. But overall, I mean, I think our cornerbacks have been playing really well. I mean, like, as far as Pro Football Focus goes, I think they're all above an 80 right now, which is solid to see. But I mean, I like seeing Frank Clark get in there a little bit more. I thought he's been an awesome talent that we should be using a little bit more this year. I remember seeing him sack Cam Newton in the playoffs last year, and man, he took him down so fast. I've never seen anybody take Cam Newton down that quick. It was insane. So I thought we needed to get him more involved. But overall, man, I like what I'm seeing. I thought that in the first game our offense really struggled, and it was like I was kind of like, oh, how are we going to end up? Because our offense just couldn't push the ball down the field. But in the last victory, man, things looked really, really nice.
Hey, Connor, which player has been limited by injury so far this year? Do you see it having a big impact on the rest of the season if healthy?
Well, I know we had Tyler Lockett come down with a little bit of an injury, and I don't know if that's had an effect on his play because I know he had a really good week 1, and then since then he's kind of slowed down. He really hasn't had a whole lot of production. But I really hope that Jermaine Ifedi steps in and he has a solid couple games. I mean, overall, like, his grade on Pro Football Focus hasn't been great, but, I mean, Pete Carroll talks really, really highly of him, and I can see the physicality in him as an offensive lineman, so I really like to see that. But overall, man, I mean, I just hope Thomas Rawls comes back and he picks up the slack, although there's not a whole lot of slack to pick up because Christy Michael's been playing great. But I don't know, man. I just hope that, the small bit of injuries that we've got really sort themselves out and we can make that run the way we did last year.
The Falcons come to Seattle with a huge wave of confidence. What's different about the Falcons this season?
Well, I mean, I think the biggest difference for the Falcons is that they're leading the NFL in almost every single offensive statistic. 35 points a game is first. Yards per game, 457 is first. Pass yards, 333.4 is first. The only thing they're out of the top of the league in is rush yards, and that they're in 7th. But overall, I mean, I think it's insane to see the committee that they have in their backfield because Tevin Coleman, he's hardly even a running back right now. He had, over 100 yards receiving last game, and they're using him almost as much as Devontae Freeman, but hardly as a pure back. And so I think that diverse offense that they have, and obviously with Julio Jones, is really just willing their team to win. So when you score 35 points a game, you're hardly ever going to lose unless your defense is the 32nd team in offense or defense in the NFL. And, I mean, their defense hasn't been anything special, but overall, I mean, they hold their own, and I think that's why Atlanta's doing as well as they are right now.
Hey, Connor, I think this is Dan Quinn's first game back in Seattle since going to the Falcons. How do you think the fans will welcome him or react to him coming back to Seattle?
Well, I hope we don't give him too much of a hard time, man, because I really like Dan Quinn. I thought he was a great coordinator during his time in Seattle. He really, really was the heart of that team in the Super Bowl and all that. I mean, willing us to where we got, and he was just a great play caller. I really thought that the way he orchestrated our defense, put the right packages and defense packages on the field when we needed it, I thought he was just awesome, man. So I hope we don't give him too much of a hard time.
Yeah, I mean, I hope we beat him, but I hope we don't give him too much of a hard time. Now, Sherman versus Brandon Marshall, that matchup kind of went back and forth as we saw. Do you think, is Sherman going to match up against Julio Jones straight up this week? And if he does, how do you think that's going to play out?
Well, I think he will be on Julio Jones for most of the game because unlike a lot of number one receivers in the NFL, just because of Julio Jones' skill set, they don't put him inside a whole lot. I mean, you will see him in there every once in a while, but that's just, that's just the way offensive play out sometimes. But for the most part, I mean, they're always going to play him outside, and Sherm's never inside. That's always going to be Jeremy Lane or Deshaun Shedd. So, I mean, overall, I think you're going to see Sherman and Shedd up against each other a lot. Or Sherman and Julio Jones, sorry. And I think that's going to be a great matchup. I think Julio Jones, he's not the fastest guy, but if he gets by you, you're not going to catch back up to him. That's just the way it is. He's got great feet. He's got great hands, some of the best hands in the NFL. But Sherman's also got really good instincts. He's got a great IQ of the game. He knows where the ball's going to go. He can read the quarterback's eyes. So it's hard to guess exactly how it's going to go because, I mean, like you said, the Brandon Marshall-Sherman matchup went back and forth, and the next thing you know, Sherman finishes the game with 2 picks. So I think it's really going to be a back and forth kind of the way that Sherman and Marshall went.
Now, where do you see the Falcons having the biggest advantage against the Seahawks coming Sunday?
Well, I think the biggest advantage could come in the defensive line to our offensive line, and that's just going to come if I believe Vic Beasley had like 3 sacks on Sunday this last week. And, I mean, if he plays that way he does again against Gary Gilliam, we're going to have a tough time with Russell Wilson getting the ball out. And I'm a little bit worried about that. They got Dwight Freeney on the outside as well now, big veteran coming in with that signature spin move. And I think that if their linebackers and D-line play well against our offensive line, that's what's going to hamper our offense the most.
Hey, Connor, on the flip side, where do the Seahawks have an advantage against the Falcons?
I really think that outside of Sherman and Julio Jones, we have the biggest advantage in our secondary versus their, tight ends, receivers, running backs. Because with Cam Chancellor being physical, playing up in the box the way he is so far this year, and Shed and Lane really being solid options outside of Richard Sherman, that, Mohamed Sanu and company and Jacob Tamme, they're going to have a tough time really trying to dot our defense up. And Bobby Wagner and KJ Wright really have been pretty good in coverage so far as well. So if Jacob Tamme tries to get open across the middle, I hope that they're able to come up. But for the most part, man, I think that our secondary has the overall advantage over the Falcons wide receivers.
Who wins and why?
I keep on going back and forth on this, man, because I hope that my Hawks win, but we saw what happened when the best defense in the league, or arguably the best defense in the league, when the Denver Broncos played at home against the Atlanta Falcons last week, the number one offense, and that went in the Falcons' favor. So, and that's tough because the Broncos have a really, really good secondary, arguably better than the Legion of Boom and Seattle secondary. So, honestly, it could come down to how efficient our offense is and how well our defense just holds them to 3 and outs and keeps the points off the board. And overall, I think if we're able to stop them at least 4 or 5 times, get those 3 and outs and keep the points off the board, I think that our offense can put up enough points to beat the Falcons this week.
Connor, we want to thank you for being on. Where can you be found on social media?
I can be found on social media at CJ Benintendi, and I like to post some stuff every once in a while. I'll always be tweeting out my articles I put out for Cover32, and those are really good as well. So, thanks for having me on, guys.
Appreciate it, man.
Hey, no problem. Thanks again.
Yeah, have a good one.
Now is the moment of truth. Because, Kev, I want to ask you. You've got this vaunted defense, and you're going up against Matty Ice and, Julio Jones, hands down best receiver in the league this season. What are your thoughts? Who do you think wins and why?
Dude, I'm not Seahawks at home are pretty formidable, but they've been beat. Like I said earlier, I've always liked Matt Ryan. I think he's a good quarterback. Julio Jones is a good receiver. Mohamed Sanu is a good receiver. They're playing well, and they're a well coached team. I just hope and it's always the case. And Connor mentioned it, always the biggest. Whoever we ask, what's the biggest advantage the other team has over the Seahawks? Every single time, it's their defensive line against our offensive line. Our offensive line is still suspect, although they're getting better, but it's still always a major factor. I really don't know. I hope the Hawks win. I don't think anybody's going to blow anybody out. It may come down to a field goal, and both teams have good kickers. I'm hoping I hope the Hawks win. I'd love to see them take another game up in the division, but I'm not real confident with it. Let's just put it that way.
So tell me this much for someone. Let's just say that I'm out of market and I don't have a Sunday ticket. Wouldn't this be like the featured afternoon game? Like, what happens to those people that don't have Sunday ticket? Are they just left out in the cold?
I think so. I would think it's going to be a big game. I mean, both teams are playing well. Seattle's 3-1, and Atlanta's 4-1. I mean, it's a possible playoff matchup for sure down the road, like it was a few years ago. I think it's a big game. It is a big game.
All right. We're getting ready to wrap this baby up. So, anything interesting leading up to, as you finish out the week, as you prep for Atlanta and Seattle? Anything interesting you got going on, or?
Not a lot. Really, I don't have much going on. You're just getting the yard and everything prepared for winter, I suppose.
Got you. Yeah, the weather's starting to change up here a little bit. I tell you, this is the season where you can catch a cold just like that. Because I tell you, truthfully, I feel like I'm coming down with something now. But other than that, I think you should take us on out, Kev. It was a blast once again working with you. Looking forward to hopefully a Jets win. And then I can come back on and brag, but I have nothing to brag about from Gang Green Nation.
Well, hopefully you will sooner or later. And then give me a holler about coming on that Late Night Parent Show also. And go Hawks.
You got it. Take care, buddy.
All right, man.
This is the Cover 32.
Fios is not cable. We're wired differently, which means you can get the fastest internet available with equal upload and download speeds from 50 to 500 megs. So you can upload 200 photos before your favorite song is finished. Click the ad and switch to Fios today to get our best offer ever.
When I listen to Audible, I'm not cooking dinner for one. I'm on horseback, galloping across the Scottish moors towards my one true love. There, through the mist, I see my beloved, kilt flapping in the breeze. The fibers of his shirt struggle against his bulging muscles as he takes me from my horse and... my frittata!
Go to audible.com/start trial and your first download is free. Audible. Stories that surround you.